Justice Venkatcharaya, Mr. Dutt, Mr. Ramachandran, and the charming young lady, Vasanti. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm grateful to the DGP Karnataka for having extended us all the facilities and hosting this conference. Our intention is to hold a series of such conferences in different states and interact with the stakeholders on this very vital subject of security of women and children, because this is becoming a very important issue, not only in India, but actually if you look at it globally, it's an area which is causing a lot of concern to people across the countries. When the United Nations defined its Millennium Goals, gender equality was at number 3. And it is a fact that several states have moved forward. About 36 countries have incorporated the principle of gender equality in their constitution. And yet, if you look at the ground realities, it's still a very unequal world. And women are at the receiving end in different parts of the world. And the assessment is, it's a rough assessment, that about 1/3 of the women in the world as a whole have suffered some kind of sexual assault or violence in their lives. It's a large number, 1/3 of the women in the world as a whole. In India, this problem is becoming very acute, which is very unfortunate really, because if you look at our history, our culture, women have always been placed on a high pedestal and given a very high degree of regard. In fact, in the Indian scale of values, the mother takes, in terms of precedence, importance, mother takes precedence over father, and father of course takes precedence over the teacher. I think there's a line in some scripture that father is equal to 100 teachers and a mother is equal to 100 fathers. That is the importance given to a mother in the Indian scale of values. And yet we find the mothers and daughters today struggling for their own security, in spite of all the attention which has been given by the government at different periods of time. In recent times, the Supreme Court has been pioneer in several areas in the absence of the executive not showing adequate initiative. Here also the process started with Vishaka guidelines given by the Supreme Court in 1997, when guidelines were given about how women are to be protected at the workplace. After that, the matter remained dormant until the Nirbhaya episode in 2012. And that again led to a lot of churning in the country, that why things are going wrong, why are women not safe. There was a lot of debate, and a committee was appointed, as you know, headed by Justice J.S. Verma. And following his recommendations, a Criminal Law Amendment Act was passed in 2013. That Amendment Act broadened the definition of rape and also sexual assault, and it prescribed very stringent punishment, including that included death penalty for rape in certain cases, where the woman suffers and dies actually. Now, there is no dearth of laws in the country. We have had the Criminal Law Amendment Act. Otherwise, also there are so many laws. There's the Indecent Representation of Women's Act, there's the Trafficking in Women Act, there's the Dowry Prohibition Act, there is the Child Marriage Act, there is the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act. There are acts and acts to protect women over and above the Criminal Law Amendment Act. And yet, situation continues to deteriorate, and in fact, I would say take a nosedive. Why is that happening? I think this needs a very clear understanding of the gravity of the problem. What I feel is that so far we have been addressing the symptoms. Symptoms being a woman is teased or molested or harassed or raped. These are the symptoms. But what leads to this kind of behavior, that we have not tried to analyze, and that's why. And I feel that is the main reason why, in spite of all the laws, things continue to deteriorate, and we are repeatedly discussing the subject of crimes against women. And if you look at the NCRB statistics, they also say that in the last 1 decade, crimes against women have doubled. So what is really wrong? What is really wrong? That needs to be understood and diagnosed. I mean, I'll give my own assessment for whatever it is worth. You see, if you look at the social milieu today, you would find that sex is in the air. Long ago, as a student of communism, I had read that you can escape the sun and the moon, but not communist propaganda. As a student, I had read somewhere when Russia and China were two dominant communist countries. Today, I mean, is sex as pervasive as, shall I say, communist propaganda in those days? I mean, you look at any newspaper, you open any newspaper, you look at the cinema, you look at the electronic media, you look at the advertising world, whatever it is, there is a projection of women in a particular form, what is described as the commodification of women. Now, this is supplemented by free availability of pornography. Now, academics would discuss no end whether pornography leads to crime against women or not. But the fact is, let us admit the fact that pornography is freely available at the click of the mouse. I mean, I have also grown up, but I mean, I'm sorry to be being rather blunt about it, but I never saw the photograph of a nude woman until I had become an IPS probationer. Until then, I had not seen. I mean, because it was just not available that freely. Today, if you start examining, I think boys of 8, 9, 10, 11, they have access to pornography and they are watching it. Now, once you have matured, you have become an IPS officer, I mean, there is a certain level of maturity and you know what, you can discriminate what to take and what not to take. But it is available freely and you don't know what the young boy or the young girl who's studying till late in the night, what is he or she watching. Now this would have its effect on minds which are sensitive, on minds which are not mature. Then, of course, our TV shows are there, our cinemas are there, and now in the name of freedom of expression, everything has to be accepted. And the moment you raise your objection to anything, they sort of criticize you by that pejorative term called moral policing. Yes, it has become a pejorative term, but nobody asks whether in this country we want immoral policing. Now you object to immoral policing, you object to moral policing. What kind of policing you want? Let us be clear about it. And of course there are any number of examples, but I just give one example of the kind of songs which are also we have to see on the screen. Now one song says, "मैं तंदूरी मुर्गी हूँ, गटक ले मुझको alcohol से." Now what kind of message are you trying to convey by saying that मैं तंदूरी मुर्गी हूँ और गटक ले मुझको alcohol से? And there would be any number of examples could be given. I remember in one of my visits to Mumbai when I met Amir Khan, he was himself saying कि सिंह साहब क्या हम लोग खुद बड़े परेशान हैं, ऐसे ऐसे गानों में ऐसे ऐसे शब्द आ जा रहे हैं। और फिर उन्होंने एक दो खुद मुझको सुनाया कि देखिए इस तरह के गाने हो रहे हैं, क्या करें, हम लोग सिर पीट लेते हैं, पर ये गाने आजकल लोग कहते हैं साहब पब्लिक की डिमांड है, इसको तो डालना है, इससे फिल्म पॉपुलर हो जाएगी। So this is the basic problem, the free availability of a lot of material which I mean, by our standards, should not be there. Now, how is this to be addressed? How is this to? I mean, that's a long subject, and I'm sure the speakers would be throwing light on that. But I'll just flag the points. I mean, through education, through media exercising a certain degree of restraint, through some kind of regulation of the internet. I think that regulation is absolutely must. And we are very chary about doing any kind of regulation. In fact, US has done more regulation of the internet than we have done. I have kept cuttings of speeches made by US presidents on how the internet is to be regulated because it is going berserk. But here you talk of internet regulation and immediately, oh, freedom of the press is in danger, this, that, and all that you have to hear. Fortunately, the Supreme Court has stepped in again, and to regulate child pornography, they have roped in the internet giants. It was there recently in the newspapers. They have asked the representatives of Yahoo and Facebook and Google to come to India and do a brainstorming session for 15 days and evolve the guidelines which could be followed by the press. So let's hope that better sense dawns, and let's hope that this government moves in the direction of addressing what is known as the root causes or the basic factors or the core reasons which are responsible for generating and sustaining a kind of atmosphere where sex is available off the shelf, so to say. Unless we do that, I'm afraid we'll be again trimming the branches but not going to the root of the problem. With these words, I thank you all for coming here to participate in discussions on a subject which is very relevant to us and which the India Foundation is going to push forward with our very limited resources. And I'm sure you will benefit by the detailed presentations which different speakers would be giving.